They were able to identify all 7 gang members, and their leader was thought to be Sean Crichton.
He had an extensive criminal history dating back to 1981. His record included firearms and drug offences. He was also linked to another known criminal, Simon Turner.
And it's my opinion, based on the contact I've been able to have within that inquiry, that Simon Turner was a particularly a nasty individual who had an absolute loathing and hatred of the Hells Angels.
As the investigation continued to collect evidence on the outlaw gang, Jerry Tobin still needed to be formally identified. This grim task fell to his mother, who had travelled from Canada after hearing the tragic news.
The detectives came and drove me to the morgue to see my boy. And I'd never experienced a morgue or anything before. And he had a white sheet over him. I saw his face. And I was saying, I was touching him, and I began to talk to him, to sing to him, you know, because I knew it was my boy. I knew then there was nowhere other than to play with death, you know, other than to say to death, oh, you know, you can't have him. You can't have him, he belongs to me, you know, he's mine. So I wanted to wrap him in a cloth and carry him home, was my instinct.
Jerry was born on the 26th of March 1972 in Macclesfield, Cheshire, an only child. He moved with his parents to Canada and spent most of his youth growing up in Peace River, Alberta.
And we never had an ounce of trouble, not 1 ounce of trouble with Gerard Michael.
He was a religious person who enjoyed giving Bible lessons at the local Sunday school. It was during this time he first got a taste for motorbikes and was often seen arriving at church on his Harley Davidson.
The very first bike he bought himself was a Harley Davidson, a special edition Harley Davidson. The Harley Davidson was and meant everything to our Gerard. There was no other bike but a Harley Davidson. I remember these times with joy, yeah, absolutely.
His mother only found out Jerry was a Hells Angel when she heard of his death.
Of course, we were in trauma at that time, immediate trauma, along with our grief and a sudden death like that of your child. And although he was 35, he's still our kid, you know.
5 days since Jerry's murder, and the police were under extreme pressure to solve this case. International biker clubs had been violently feuding for many years, and the police feared it would spread to our shores.
The rivalry between the Hells Angels and the Outlaws on a global basis has been long-standing, and that rivalry is born out of basic, pure hatred for one another. And I would say to you that the hatred between them is palpable. You could almost cut the hatred between them. It's that bad.
The Outlaw Motorcycle Club in the UK have been actively recruiting. Their numbers are estimated to be 430 fully patched members, with 100 probationers waiting for the chance to earn their full patch.
You're talking about empires that straddle the globe, that began in the United States but now know no international borders. They try to control certain areas, and they will use any means possible in order to stake their ground, to keep their turf, and to compete with the rival gangs. And so when you get an outbreak of violence in a motorway in England, you have to see it as part of this global battle between these gangs that straddle the globe.
In the last 60 years, there have been 3,670 deaths around the world as a result of biker conflicts. Countless bombings in Australia, the United States and Canada. In Norway, a Scandinavian biker war broke out between the Hells Angels and the Banditos. This violent conflict lasted for 3 years. It left 11 dead and 96 wounded. The war ended in a truce in 1997. So far, Britain has escaped the mass bloodshed seen overseas, but the police have concerns that the violence between the motorcycle gangs could erupt and are determined not to be complacent.
This isn't just a Warwickshire issue, it's not just a British issue, it's an international issue, and what's happened is our eyes have been opened to the potential for the sort of violence we saw when Gerry Tobin was shot to happen in the future.
You may not have seen all the violence that we've seen in Canada, in North America, in Australia, and in Europe. But finally, when there's a murder, when there's a gang warfare that hits England, there is a sense, well, kind of wake up and smell the coffee. This is what biker gangs are all about.
But what triggered the violent act that killed Gerry Tobin could be closer to home. The Angels hold their Bulldog Bash at a site near Stratford-upon-Avon, which the South Warwickshire chapter of the Outlaws see as their territory. Day 6 and the investigation was moving at a rapid pace. They'd retrieved the burnt-out car. They had 2 named suspects with connections to rival biker clubs. And now, to find the evidence that would put them in the frame, CCTV became the focus of the investigation.
This footage here is at Gaydon filling station just off junction 12 of the M40.